Man, what is going on, y'all? Welcome to the first edition. We're so excited of the AJ and RK Build It podcast. We're here and we're desiring to have the really difficult conversations that we see is needed in this season. We're trying to build a bridge from one side to the other side. This is my boy. This is my friend. We go back. Let's do it, man.
Welcome, everyone. Just quick disclaimer out there for everyone. Obviously, this is just going to be AJ and I's opinion on things, or Adrian. Our names are up there: Adrian, Ryan, AJRK, whatever you want to call us. It's really just our opinions. We're not trying to give people. We're not trying to force people to think a certain way or anything like that. We just kind of want. We want to make sure that everybody is forcing themselves to get out there and have these conversations with people, same race, different race, doesn't matter. Get out and have these conversations to like what our title is, build that bridge that we want for a better future. And then also, hopefully we don't offend anybody. Obviously we can't please everybody, but this is just our opinion. We're not representing anybody but ourselves and each other. And yeah, so we can.
Yo, definitely that disclaimer is definitely needed. What I'm seeing with conversation that is lacking now is people approach topics and conversation one-sided, and they usually only listen to respond instead of listen to understand. So, like you said, when you came with this idea, man, I thought it was a great idea. To even the if there's questions that are far left or far right, you know what I'm saying, and just being able to discuss them and see different viewpoints. All I would ask is that anybody that's listening, shut down the bias early, check the bias early, and actually listen to what each side has to say, because that's lacking so much in everything we see, whether it be the news cycle, whether it be people posting on social media. In this day and age, so much is missing from the conversation, and that's what we don't understand. That's what we're missing. The key ingredients are the sender, the message, and the receiver. Those three parts are needed. So if we understand and we check our own biases, and we leave the fence at the door, because, like I said, this conversation, it has the ability to be like extremely offensive. But what I appreciate is that the history you and I have, you know what I'm saying, to where even if these tough topics come up, we can, you know what I'm saying, we can talk our way through them.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And also, just another quick disclaimer: I for sure there's certain things that I'll probably want to talk about that maybe aren't my opinion, but I want to hear what your thoughts are on it. So there's gonna be times where I'll probably have some kind of devil advocate kind of questions and stuff like that, because that's the whole reason why we're doing this, is to have
Definitely.
the conversation, like, kind of break down all barriers so we can actually build for a better future. So
Definitely.
the whole point of this is to not avoid any sort of questions and stuff like that. So yeah, um,
Yeah.
I guess really the best way to start this off, we had talked about, is we want to kind of give you all listeners a background on AJ and myself, how we grew up, and then kind of our background on, since we've known each other and stuff like that, the interaction that we've had, so you guys can kind of understand what has shaped our relationship and just who we are individually as people, and then also might help you understand why we want to do this. And if this helps one person listens to this, and that affects their future for the positive, then so be it. If it helps 100 or more, whatever. But
Definitely.
everybody has to do their part, and this randomly came across my head as the thing I wanted to do, and no better person in my opinion to do it with than you. And so don't listeners, don't judge me too harshly. AJ's like a professional speaker. He gets up and talks in front of people all the time. This is my first time doing this, so we'll get through it. Every episode will probably be better. So yeah. So
Definitely.
you're the elder, so I'll kind of let you start off with you growing up and stuff like that.
Man, okay, yeah. So definitely. So growing up, man, I had a diverse background, and if people had the stereotypical black experience, what they think it is, that's not me. You know what I'm saying? I have a little bit of everything. So I grew up a military brat. funny thing is actually my dad was an air traffic controller in the United States Air Force, retired as Master Sergeant. I retired as a Master Sergeant Air Traffic Controller in the United States Air Force. Because of that, I lived all over the world. I think that feeds a lot into my worldview, and it shaped the man I am today. But I am not. Like I said, I have had those rough years. You know what I'm saying? Those years, those rough experiences, those years where we didn't have much. We had more going out than we had coming in. So when I say where I'm from, I claim Tampa, Florida, because that's where I graduated from. A lot of my family is from Louisville, Kentucky. Um,
It's not because Tom
and
Brady's in Tampa now.
bruh, don't even get me started. So, Jameis is my dude. Like,
sorry, I had to throw that quick jab in there. You about to be a Saints
exactly.
fan now. I said
I,
you
I
about.
definitely I hated the Saints for a while, but I got a little bit. I'm kind of wanting New Orleans to win a Super Bowl in Tampa Bay this year.
Yeah.
but yeah, I claim Tampa. Crazy thing is, my family's from Louisville, Kentucky, and I was at a funeral about 2.5 years ago, 2017, and at that funeral was Breonna Taylor, because she's a good friend of my family. So my family, this touches so close to home. But yeah, growing up in Tampa. Being exposed to different things. I went to multiracial high schools. I went to high schools in the inner city that were poor. Like I said, I've been all over. When I came into the military, post 9/11, like right after 9/11 happened. Came in for a calling, but actually, when I came in, I was actually trying to get out of my enlistment in the military because I hadn't gotten scholarships to play football at the next level. But when I went to my guidance counselor, I did the first delayed entry, the first time you raise your hand at MEPS. They don't tell us that that's not real. You know what I'm saying? If you ask anybody that served, you're like, yo, bro, nah, you're not in the military, you're good. But yeah, they didn't tell us. So when I went to my guidance counselor, he told me, kids from your neighborhood only end up in one of three places: at jail, at home with your mom, or in the grave. And he said the best place for you is the military. That will be key in, like, when we talk later. You know what I'm saying? And what I thought I could accomplish, opportunities that were out there for me. Um, but yeah, in dealing with what's going on today, I've been there, man. We're gonna talk, and we'll get into it after you share, your background. We'll get into it. I've been there to where I've had multiple interactions with police that I didn't know how I was gonna. I knew there were some times I felt just extremely disrespected, and then other times I felt like I didn't know if I was gonna live to tell this story. So I have times I was in the wrong, times I was doing absolutely nothing. But we'll get into that. My military career, I did 17 months, 17 years, 8 months in the Air Force. I've been all over the world. I've been to almost every war zone that we Afghanistan, Iraq, Africa. You know what I'm saying? All over the Middle East. Had a good career. It shapes the way I think sometimes now. I've seen injustices in the military. Cool thing is, the Air Force is actually acknowledging a lot of those injustices with the leadership they have now. Um, I love what I do, love who I came in contact with, love who I work. Air traffic controller now, right now. I'm a youth minister. I love going into the inner city and working with inner city youth. Actually, the cool thing is, before we even had this, um, my youth department, what we envisioned was creating a sound, and that sound not necessarily being like a song or a genre of music, but that sound actually being a voice that says, look, we don't want just an all black church or an all white church. We want to create a space, a place where people can actually come together and grow together in love and harmony, and that's the sound we want to come. And we've actually been intentional in doing that. And once stuff opens back up, we're going to hit the ground running once again, because I truly believe in racial reconciliation. But that's a little bit about me. We're going to share a little bit of our stories next. But man, go ahead and tell them about you, man.
All right, so I feel like we couldn't have grown up any more different but the same. So it's a little
Yeah.
funny. I grew up in Washington State. Grew up on the eastern side of the state until I was in high school. Small rural towns, very predominantly white.
Yeah.
Like all the towns were like 1,000, 1,500 people in every town and stuff like that. So it was like,
Yeah.
everybody. I think if I would have stayed there, my graduating class had like 28 people or something like that in it.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was really
That's
small.
crazy.
And then moved to an island about an hour and a half north of Seattle and went to high school there. And it still went to a smaller town, and that was predominantly white still. Um, and my graduating class, I think, was like 80 or something like that. Grew up the son of a police officer.
Yeah.
He's retired he's retired now. He retired when I was in high school. So I think maybe would have had a slightly different high school experience if my dad was still a police officer and wouldn't have been retired, because my older siblings and stuff had to deal with that experience.
Yeah.
But so I kind of lucked out because I was living in a new area where my dad wasn't a cop, so all the cops didn't know me and stuff like that. So I'm sure the
Yeah.
experience would have been a little bit different, both good, but there's both good and sides, or good and bad sides to growing up as the son of a police officer. But so I've also seen, you know, some of what he had experienced and stuff like that. So I've seen the other side of it, and then moved back to Eastern Washington to go to WSU, and absolutely hated school. Stopped going to school for a while, was working like some minimum wage job, then went back to community college for like a semester and was like, nah, I still really don't want to go to school. My dad's just forcing me to go to school, but I really don't want to go to school. And
Yeah.
I knew I had to do something different. One of my best friends had just joined the army, so I started looking in the military. My dad's like, he had been in the Army Reserves for a little bit, so he kind of had some perspective on the military, and he's like, well, you need to go talk to all the recruiters. Don't just join the Army because your best friend joined the Army. So went talked to the Air Force recruiter, was the first one I talked to, and kind of just fell in love with the idea. I actually was still wanting to be a police officer at the time. I was going to do security forces for 2 or 3 years, get out, and become a cop. It's pretty funny because now there's no way I would want to be a cop.
Exactly.
Partially, just the state that the country's in right now, but also that lifestyle just isn't what I want. Um, so ended up joining the Air Force. Had no idea what an air traffic controller was. Went to basic to tech school. Still had no idea what an air traffic controller was even after tech school. Like I was like, I think I was still,
Right.
I think I was still in zombie mode from basic training. Like I was just like memorizing the words, but not comprehending what the words said at all.
Yeah.
And then, got to my first base in Georgia where I met you, and finally found out what an air traffic controller was. Feel like I ended up becoming a fairly decent air traffic controller. Was in the Air Force for 6 years, 7 months. Never deployed. Spent time in southern Georgia. Spent 3 years in Japan. Got out from there. Came back to the States. Lived in rural Idaho and worked at a small airport there. And now I'm living down in Southern California, working on a bigger airport. And yeah, that kind of brings us up to today. And,
So
yep.
you did the Kadena route, right?
Yep.
So that's where you really got to work traffic.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like every base that has fighters and stuff like that, they try to boast about we're the busiest. I will say Kadena's airspace is complex because of the class Bravo. For obviously you non-air traffic controllers aren't going to understand, but
Yeah.
because of the class Bravo from Naha, and I saw every airframe besides the bombers.
Yeah,
I think
that's how your coda was.
there was one other one that somebody brought up, and I was like, oh yeah, I didn't see that one. But just at our base, I'm sure you can Wikipedia. I'm not going to go through them all because I don't want to spout off anything that I'm not supposed to say. But there's a lot of different airframes that go in and out of there. So it was. There was hectic days. There was hectic days. I'll say that.
Military wise, I've never seen a surface area as big as Kadena's. It was just like ridiculous, bruh.
Yeah.
So
It's like a city.
Yeah.
The entire base is like a city, and then just the runways themselves are huge.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So cool,
But
man.
yeah, it was a cool experience. 3 years was a long time being stationed in a foreign country, just because like the whole English aspect and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
and I think by that point I was just ready to get out of the Air Force. So it was like a year into there, I knew I wanted to get out of the Air Force. So then it was 2 years
Yeah.
of being there. But I still, um, I'm still proud of what I did there and stuff like that. I feel like I wasn't one of those lazy airmen that gave up their last 2 or 3 years that they're in the service. I think
Yeah.
I requested to be a crew boss when I had less than a year left, and there was all these people that outranked me. And I went into the chief controller and told him, I said, "Hey, I'm the best controller you have, and I'm the best leader you have. Let me be in charge."
I feel you learn from the best, man.
Oh yeah, I learned from you. I have no problem saying. I tell people to this day, anytime I bring you up, I always, and that was the whole reason why I wanted to do this with you. You're for sure one of my mentors and somebody that I very much look up to, and
Man, I
have so much
appreciate it. I was
respect for.
joking, but man. Yeah.
So yeah.
Crazy thing though, man. I still have it. I still have it, but one of my football offer letters was from Eastern Washington, and in 2001, I was all like, "Eastern Washington? Don't nobody know nowhere knows about this.
Hey,
I've never been to the West Coast,
don't sleep on that team. They're good. They
bro. That would have been awesome if I would have taken that.
last
So
I think it was last night. Random YouTube videos. I was watching Division 2 upsets,
yeah,
and I think it was like 3 years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago. They beat Oregon State.
yeah,
I think they may have beaten Washington State one year when Washington State was terrible, and then another time
yeah.
Washington State beat them by like 1 point, and it's like,
Wow, yeah.
but they
So
had who's the wide receiver for the Rams? Tall white dude. I think he was hurt last year, but yeah,
yeah,
he went to Eastern Washington. He set all kinds of records. He had like 2,000 receiving yards and like 20 touchdowns his senior year.
yeah,
He's a beast.
yep. See, but yeah, man, son of a cop, man. That's like that's crazy. Like I said, me, all I know is, like I said, my dad was there. And the crazy thing is, my dad was an air traffic controller, retired from the Air Force. When I came in, I had no idea what air traffic control was either, man.
Oh yeah.
Matter of fact, I almost washed out like week 2 in at tech school. So, yep. But yeah, I guess we were saying some interactions we had. Even though my dad was military, early on, I had I don't know if he'll remember this story when he watches this, but I recall we lived on a long loop, about a 2-mile loop, when I was little at one of our houses. And to get to our house, you had to enter this one-way loop, and we're behind this police officer, and it's like 25 miles an hour in this area, and he's going like 5 miles an hour. So we're behind him for like almost a mile, going 5 miles an hour. So when we come up to our turn, my dad flashes his lights and flashes the cops, and then he turns left, and the cop stops his car, backs up, and follows us down this runway street. My dad drops down and he starts going 5 miles an hour. You know what I'm saying? Until he gets to the house, and then when we get out, the cop, he asks, "Is there a problem? You're going extremely slow. And you flash me your lights." And my dad, and I'm young. I'm like 6, 7 years old. My dad says, "Nah. I figured the speed limit changed, and y'all just didn't tell us since I was behind you for a mile, going 5 miles an hour." And the only reason I tell that story is because that's my first interaction with the police, and that's my first interaction with authority. It's kind of at a 6, 7-year-old age, it kind of taught me to look sideways at authority sometimes, question authority sometimes. Well, growing up, I recall just being in a crowd once, getting choked out of a club by police officers. I don't recall what I did there. I was put in the back of a cop car at the age of 16 years old. We were fishing in Tampa, and this is in base house. This is in a housing area to where a lot of people live together. So like no one has their own backyard. I don't know if people have been to Florida, but in Florida it'll rain every single day, but it'll rain for like 5 minutes. Like
Yeah.
it'll pour down for 5 minutes, and then the sun is out. So we're fishing, me and about three or four other of my black friends. We're fishing, and it starts raining. So we go under this awning, and it's about four people share this awning. We go under this awning, and then as we're getting ready to go back out to go fishing again, the cops roll up. You know, lights on, everything. They roll up and they come questioning us, and they're like, "Yo, we're looking for four suspects that stole bikes," and we're like, "Man, I don't stole bikes. We haven't. That's not us. You know, we saw some kids down the street, but I don't know who you're looking for. That's not us." So we're thinking it's nothing. Well, I see someone behind the blinds, like, lift up the blinds, not coming out and confronting a high schooler, but they start pointing. That's them. You know what I'm saying? And mind you, we haven't stolen anything. We haven't taken anything. The only thing in our hands, in our pockets, is the fishing equipment we came with. Um, so the cops, they put us in the car, take us into the station. And these ones, though, I will give it. These were military cops, so I'm not gonna say rent a cops, but they're military cops, so they only watch TV. So they turned that. We were soaking wet because it was raining. They turned the AC all up, trying to question us, like we're gonna give them like this. They're trying to solve this major crime. But yeah, no, we were there for freezing cold for hours before they called our parents and had our parents come get us. And that was at a, like at the age of 15 and 16. And then the time when I felt my life was most threatened, I was in Alamogordo, New Mexico, Holloman Air Force Base. I was actually an E4 in the Air Force. I hadn't deployed yet. Now, mind you, I've been downrange and I've been held at gunpoint before over in Africa. I was at gunpoint over some silly things. I'm like really, bro. Like it was 3 times in Africa. We worked off base. So I didn't work on post in Africa. I was one of the few people that worked off base. The 3 times I was at gunpoint was Eritrea, Somalia, and Ethiopia were at war. Now, mind you, the place I'm at is right in the middle of those 3 countries. It was the craziest thing ever because we're like 6 miles from the border of Somalia, and we'd be getting inbound calls and overflight approvals, and they'd be like, "Who is it? Yeah, he can come, but if he's military, he can't come because they dropped bombs on our runway like a couple hours ago." And I'm like, "This is the weirdest thing." So I'm coming up the steps, and a Djiboutian guard is on the catwalk, and he comes out, and he's got his gun on me, and he's yelling something in a local language, and I'm yelling for the African controller. I'm like, Nasser, come down. Nasser comes down, and he said, "Yo, he thought you was Somalian," and because I was black in Africa, he thought I was Somalian. I was like, "I don't even look Somalian,"
Yeah.
So I was at that gunpoint there. Another time, we were coming for a midshift, and we had just stopped at the DFAT to bring food for our midshift. Yeah, I had some bacon, some waffles, everything, man. And I'm going through the gate like to get off base, and the Djiboutian guard is like, what is that? And he's talking about my food, and I'm not giving him my food, bro. Like, I'm not doing it. He's like, "What is that?" I was like, "Don't worry about what this is. I have a badge. Let me on the airfield." And he's like, "No, I asked you what is that." And then I'm like, "No." And the Navy guy with me, he's like, "Yo, Mash, just tell him what it is." And he's like, "What is that?" I said, "No." And he actually points his weapon at me to take my waffles and my bacon. You know what I'm saying? I didn't give it up though. I didn't get shot, but I didn't give it up. I wasn't letting him rob me of and I'm an ally. So those were the times the first times I was at gunpoint in Africa. But even before that, when I was at my apartment in New Mexico, Alamogordo, New Mexico, and apparently my TV was too loud because the cops were responding to a noise complaint. Mind you, think how big your apartment is now. I had a one bedroom. This was my first apartment. I was a dumb airman. Remember your first apartment when you was an airman? I had a 65-inch DLP monitor and the sectional that went from the living room. It was so big it went into the kitchen. You know what I'm saying? So of course I had the surround sound. So the noise complaint was because my music was too loud. So I look over. and I didn't know the cops were outside the door. I look over into my living room and I see a flashlight flashing. Like I see the light of a flashlight trying to look through my windows in the kitchens into the blinds. So I got no shirt on. I just got shorts on because I'm at the house. I got a couple tattoos. So when I opened the door like with my fist clenched, like ready to confront whoever's, because the door is right by the kitchen window, ready to confront whoever's outside my apartment. Well, because I opened the door with a clenched flinch, no shirt on, shorts on, man, I get bum rushed, I get thrown to the wall, and I got a service weapon from a cop to my face. And I'm in my apartment looking at a cop's service weapon, and they're yelling all kind of commands. My girlfriend at the time is crying. She's not answering any questions. So because she's crying because she's not, this is a crazy emotional situation. Like
Yeah.
she's crying. They're like, "Did he beat you?" Like, just start asking all kind of random questions. Like, is he beating you? And then they're looking. They're looking. There, I guess there's Kool-Aid on the wall or ketchup by the trash can. They're like, "Is this blood?" Like the most bootleg investigation, and it just escalated so fast. And the crazy, like looking at police tactics now, the crazy thing is, I back then I used to sleep with a loaded Desert Eagle, like way. I don't know what I was overcompensating for that I needed a 45 cal weapon right next to my
You
head.
better hit on the
But
first shot because you ain't gonna hit anything on the second.
exactly, and it had hollow points in it, bro. Like I would have put a hole in someone's chest like this thing. So could you imagine if I would have went and got my gun first and then opened the door? Like we wouldn't be having this conversation. Um, and I was at gunpoint because my TV was too loud, and we see that a lot. Like I said, and a lot of times when they tell you just don't resist, just do it this way and that way and everything. Man, you have no idea how it feels being a man, but being stripped of that feeling that you're a man. You know what I'm saying? Not having any control, not having any say, having another human being overpower you with their authority, their words, and all of this stuff, and their accusations when you've done absolutely nothing wrong. It's one of the worst feelings out there. Um, and my last story, I when I got here to Alabama, I've been here for about actually coming up on 5 years. 5 years too long. Now I'm just playing. I love being here right now. I don't know how long. A couple more months. Now I'm just playing. But when I first got here, my kids were visiting for the summer. My son was 4. My daughter was maybe she was probably like 10, 11 years old, and we wanted to go down. We wanted to go down to the beach in Florida. We went and met some friends down at the beach. Had a fun day at the beach, and I had left a little bit too late, and I had to travel back on the back roads of Alabama to get back to my home. And I just remember thinking the whole time, because in these small towns, you always pass that one cop that's on the side of the road that's hidden. And I was going about, people were so mad because I was going about 2 miles over the speed limit, but it's dark and I'm riding on these back roads and I have my son and my daughter in the back. I forgot. I have to look up the time. But there had just been another police killing, and I was so afraid the whole time. I'm talking about a 3 hour ride, 2.5 of it I'm on back roads, and I'm afraid because I did not prepare correctly. Now, mind you, I have my insurance, I have my registration, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. But the reason I feel I did not prepare correctly is because I'm riding on a dark road at night, and I did not think this through, and I was absolutely terrified. Now, mind you, I'm a grown man. At that time, I was probably like 31, 32 years old. I'm a grown man feeling like this, and I was like, that's when I was like, man, something's got to give.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so those are some of my interactions of
I, I
police and
I actually feel like these are two perfect things to dive more in on too. So let's go back to, you said New Mexico was the first one.
yeah,
So let's first go back to that. More of a devil's advocate question.
yeah,
I
definitely,
I don't know the area that you're living in or anything like that,
yeah,
but um I would say from the cops' perspective, what is a fix action for the bias that they might have, not even just on your race, but showing up to an area that, like, if there's like a certain block or a certain neighborhood that every time
yeah,
they go, let's say 50 or 60% of the time is because of a domestic dispute,
Yeah.
busting people for drugs and stuff like that. Like, you have to figure, like, no matter who it is that's going to eat at you to a point where you're not going to jump into every interaction with an open mind.
Yeah.
Like, part of your mind is automatically going to jump to those past situations that were bad, or where they might have felt like they were dealing with a life-threatening situation.
Yeah.
So, like, as soon as, like, there's that small hint that it might be going that way, they just go full bore. I'm going in full
Yeah.
defensive
Yeah.
mode.
Yeah. Yep. So devil's advocate. Here's the crazy part. So, you said it was New Mexico. Yeah, actually think about Mexico, like Roswell, like all of these. There's some crazy people in New Mexico. Um, there's a lot of places I've driven through that reminded me of The Hills Have Eyes. Matter of fact, this place I'm telling you about is about 13 miles from the Trinity site, and that's where they dropped the first bomb. And I don't think the regulations they had 50 to 60 years ago had people as you could tell they dropped the bomb in this part of the country. Um, but
No
I
offense
say
if we
that
somehow have a listener over there.
exactly right. I say that saying this, playing devil's advocate. I looked up maybe a few months afterwards. They definitely were on edge, and I understand this part being on edge. Um, in in a small town called Cloudcroft, New Mexico, the night before, they were responding to a domestic. They were responding to some call. I don't know the call they were responding to. This crazy white person. Actually got the drop on the cops and killed two of them execution style. Their handcuffs on behind their back, you know what I'm saying, shot him in the back of the head. In New Mexico, you would actually have this happen pretty often. You would have not necessarily killing cops, but just like these crazy, these crazy murders out there. So I saw they were on edge for that. And I get the nature of the job, and like you said, the town, the city that we were in. I don't know the at that time the amount of the drug problem that they had, but anywhere a lot of times in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, close to the border, you will see a lot of drug runners and stuff like that. Where I lived was it was like a small military base. They knew it was common for military
Mm-hmm.
personnel to live there. I don't know the statistics on the interactions they had in Alamogordo, because like I said, it was a heavy military population. Um, but I think definitely we see this more often than not, and a lot of times it plays with that bias. Like I told you, I was on a call last night, and actually my commander, you know what I'm saying, an officer, I'm enlisted, an officer in the military, said he's a Hispanic guy, said he's been held at gunpoint, and there was not one assignment that he had been to that there had not been a sideways interaction with the police,
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know if you can train that. I don't know. I know in air traffic, I know what we do is I don't know if the FAA still do y'all still like tests, do personality tests prior to people coming in to the FAA.
Yeah, they have to.
The
They have
simulator.
to do a really long, like, mental
So,
health
so yeah,
evaluation test.
I think an extensive. I think the only way to fix that is because you'll never be able to remove that bias. You'll never be able to. You can mitigate it. You can mitigate it with like real training. You know what I'm saying? To be a police officer, I think the salaries should be better, but the salaries only get better once the education is there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't be able to go train for you know I don't know, however, 3.5 to 6 months, and then we give you so much authority when you don't even know the laws that you are, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying,
It can't
that
just
you're
be.
upholding.
Yeah, it can't just be necessity based for the salary. It has to be performance based. Like,
Exactly.
because of the capabilities that you possess.
Yeah.
This is how
Yep.
much we should be paying you.
Yeah. And like you said, all calls are gonna be different. You probably could have so many calls that end up being exactly the same, but then if you respond thinking that it's always like this, there could be that one call where your guard is down. You know what I'm saying? That does end up causing you your life. I get that. I understand that. But you know what I'm saying? A lot of times when we look at a person, based on their color, and then that's how we respond, then that's
Yeah.
where mistakes are made. If if as a police officer your job is to keep the peace, but you're the one bringing the aggression and the anger and everything to the situation and escalating the situation, then that's an issue. Like I said, because I think 9 times out of 10, despite what your color is, if you're in your apartment right now and you see a flashlight coming through your window, you're going to be on edge. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you're gonna answer. You would be dumb to answer the door like la di da, like you know what I'm saying. Like this could possibly be a robber. Who is it?
Yeah.
You would be dumb to answer like that. So there has to be an understanding. There has to be a training. There has to be procedures that are in place that can, you know what I'm saying, help alleviate this. Because, like I said, I was perfectly in my rights owning a gun. I would have been in my right answering the front door with my gun. You know what I'm saying? The laws in New Mexico were so lenient with gun ownership. I would have been in my right, but me being in my right could have led to me being in the grave also. And that's an issue.
I totally agree. And yeah, because, like, I mean, I'm sure a big part of it is because I'm white. Um, but I can't think of a time that I would ever think of flashlight going through my windows that I would ever think it's a cop at my front door for some reason.
Yeah,
My immediate
yeah,
first thought would be some dude's about to try to rob me right now.
right,
And
yeah,
like
right,
there's a chance that I'm about to have to fight for my life.
yeah, yep. And that's what I was thinking at the time because, like I said, I was in the military. Was not. I didn't do anything really like illegal. I like may have driven my car a couple months without insurance or something. But
Yeah.
like you know what I'm saying, I never imagined that's what it was. I was probably I think watching a movie or something like that. So it did. It totally caught me off guard, and it really opened my eyes. Um, and a lot of the interactions we see now are sad, and a lot of them could easily have been avoided.
Yeah.
Easily, there's some where you can look at the situation and say, I get that, I understand that, but when we're seeing people like killed that are handcuffed, and there has to be accountability. When we see people that are killed that are automatically subdued, there has to be accountability. When we see 12-year-olds shot within 2 seconds of the cops arriving on the scene, there has to be accountability. When we see Breonna Taylor, her apartment is filled with 30 bullets. There has to be accountability. You know what I'm saying? So, yes. So, like I said, none of us right now have the answer. But a lot of us are at the place to where something honestly has to be done because it's been going on for far too long. And like I said, I really think this is a career field where there has to be a personality test. There has to be an intensive background check to where if there was any signs of any hate when you were younger, any you had any hate groups that you were affiliated with, then this isn't a job that you qualify for.
Yeah, I was actually there's a podcast that I was just watching today, and they're kind of talking about the whole environment of the country and stuff right now. And that was one of the things that the guy brought up was this can't just be like, it's not just a mental health evaluation to screen that for the screening process to hire them. It's also for them to keep working, because
Yeah,
he's like, it was a prior military person, and he's like, there's people that after their first deployment, they're not mentally fit to
yeah,
deploy again and to stay in the military. And it has to be the
yep,
same way with a police officer. Like, I'm sure shootings are something that's highlighted in their career as where they would have to go see a psychiatrist and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
maybe have at
Yeah.
least some sort of simple mental health evaluation. But there's so many other interactions that maybe one interaction won't do it, but the fact that they have to deal with that same a similar interaction to that 2 or 3 times a week, you do that for 52 weeks, and maybe that weighs enough that they need a break from the job, or that they need to find a different career field.
Exactly. I was actually in. I remember being in Moody. I had just gotten there. I was running assist for who failed their first approach. I caused them to fail their first approach certification.
It wasn't me. I passed. I can tell you that.
Who was it?
And if you were my assist, you probably wouldn't have been doing much. I kind of run the show.
I can't think of it. They were tall. I don't think DePietro made it to assist, did he?
Was it Smith?
It had to be Smith. Did he fail his first approach?
I don't think he did. I don't think he did.
I think he did initially. I was his assist, and I was CI was giving all the inbounds to Moody, and we had an inbound to Valdosta. I just got there. CI was giving all the inbounds. I missed the inbound to Valdosta, and he switched. I was like, he's good to go. He switched the frequency, switched him over to Valdosta, and Valdosta called and was like, "Yo, who is this guy that y'all just put on our frequency?" So they failed his value certification because of that. But then I owned up and I said, no, that was on me. My head wasn't in the game. I didn't give the inbound. You know what I'm saying? And I think it was definitely Smith, because he said, I've never seen someone own up to something like that when they already placed blame on me. I only mentioned that because just the day before that, I had found out my cousin had died. And I figured, I'm like, I'm good. I can deal with this. I'm good to go. But then I evaluated and I said, you know what? I wasn't really in the game. And when we're not really in the game as air traffic controllers, lives are at stake,
Mm-hmm.
But the crazy thing with us, with you and I, with the job we do, is if we make a mistake and somebody dies, we face criminal charges and we face jail time, and this is a career field that has, like, the stakes are similar. You know what I'm saying? The stakes are similar. They have life and death in their hands. You know what I'm saying? And if a mistake is made, there has to be consequences for those mistakes. But like you said, you have to be in the game 100% of the time. If you're not in the game, you may not come home that night. But then we can't overlook that if you take somebody's life, that it was just a mistake. You know what I'm saying? We have to hold life to more of a standard. It has to be more valuable, more precious than it was a mistake, or where we look at it and we automatically say, what did we do? But like you said, there has to be that constant evaluation. There has to be those checks and balances that's not covered by the thin blue line, that it is actually okay that, you know what I'm saying, you're not in a mental state to do this anymore. You know what I'm saying? That stigma has to be broken. That, you know what I'm saying, that you being in control, you having that authority all the time, that has to be broken. Because also what I do and what I do now, the reason I'm so vocal about from the spirituality standpoint, I tell people I have 3 conversations. One conversation is for people that look just like me, and I have a conversation, and that conversation is rugged, and that conversation is real, but the doors are closed, the windows are closed. That's, hey, look, we can't do this. Those devil advocate questions that you're asking and that you're going to ask, those are questions I have behind the scenes. And then I have another conversation where I have with, like, me and you, like, that are on my team, that some people may say, man, I don't know what your perspective is. And I'm like, well, I don't know your perspective. Well, that's a conversation I have. And that last conversation I have is for those that don't want to see it, those that aren't going to budge, those that aren't going to anything, So from my religious standpoint, from where I'm at, this is a conversation, and this is something, I'm extremely vocal about. But those people that claim to be Christians and are on the far right and won't budge and won't listen to anything, the reason I have that conversation with them, I'm extremely honest. I'm like, I'm trying to save y'all from going to hell, but also that if you give into like this racism rhetoric, if this is the lifestyle, if this is your mentality, I've seen from a psychology standpoint, from a ministry standpoint, more often than not, that you have a hate issue. And right now, when I'm present, you can direct your hate towards me because I don't look like you. I may not agree with you. I'm an easy target. But you always have to take that same thought and that same mindset home, and you cannot just shut it off. So a lot of times you'll see, and this may not be your experience, but you may have insight into this at growing up, how you grew up. But a lot of times with those people that are overbearing, that deal with racism, that deal with that overbearing, that superiority mindset, when they get home, I see abuse a lot, whether it be abuse of your spouse and your children, whether it be abuse of alcohol, because you can't just turn that switch off. So I'm like, yo, I'm trying to help you out. I'm trying to help, something that's damaging in your bloodline
Mm-hmm.
also. But a lot of people, they're not willing to have this conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't see how somebody can have ignorant or unaccepting or unsupportive ideology towards, if that was the word, towards like race, but then be like, hey, I'm open and accepting, I'll treat women great, I'll treat all others
Yeah,
great, except for black people. I'm not going to treat black people great.
right,
Hopefully
exactly.
nobody clips that, because that's
So
not
I
what I'm
draw the
saying.
line.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
only in this one instance am I going to treat people unfairly. Across the board, everywhere else, everybody gets treated fairly. Yeah, like you,
exactly.
you're so on the head with that. Like that's not that's not something you can turn on and off.
Yeah. So
And I think we'll do a quick side note before we go into your other situation that you were talking about. I think that was what kind of I felt like I understood the Black Lives Matter movement or what it meant for a long time. And honestly, I think the reality of it hit me like a week and a half ago. It was like right after all the protesting and stuff started again. Um,
yeah,
Last time I was back home, and I can't even remember who was saying something about it or something. But then it hit me like, no, the important thing is Black Lives Matter. Like all of
yeah,
that other stuff, that all the people that are trying to ignore, just saying, like the people saying all lives matter and stuff like that, all of that stuff will come when Black Lives Matter.
yeah, definitely.
Like, and the focus of Black Lives Matter, like that is what's important. And by not saying that's what's important and trying to like lump everything else in with it,
Yeah,
it's actually ignoring the fact that Black Lives Matter. You're not being
yeah,
like, oh no, we love everyone. No, you're still ignoring the fact that we need to
yeah, right.
love these people. These people need
Exactly.
to be loved.
Yeah, yeah. And from my perspective, man, if I can just be real, and that's what this is going to be
Yeah.
about. Man, we were in the middle of a pandemic. You know what I'm saying? So imagine the mental state already. I haven't left an apartment. I haven't seen anybody. I haven't interacted. And then you're starting to get the news that this is killing African Americans at an astronomical rate. And then when you research and there's many things that go into that, and many things that we can look at, and just if we look at the surface, then that's the surface. But if you actually like dig deep on the inside of it, it's comes from a racist core. You know what I'm saying? It comes from because what we're gonna unveil, what we're gonna uncover, what we're gonna talk about is a system that has to change, and it's not just the police. The police is just, you know what I'm saying, a representation that is so on the front lines that we see. but not having access to adequate health care. You know what I'm saying? Which leads to, you know what I'm saying, diabetes and all of these heart diseases that make someone more vulnerable and more susceptible to this coronavirus. You know what I'm saying? Just not having the adequate resources to go and get the medical condition. So you're in the middle of being isolated, fighting to have a decent mental health yourself, being somewhere we never had, but you're seeing your people are dying from this thing at an alarming rate. And then you see Ahmaud Arbery like hunted and gunned down. I don't know if you were on my page, but even before it was, I run for Ahmaud, even before that, man, I was laying out the details of this case. I studied it. I'm saying I listened to the 911 recordings. I pieced everything together. I pieced the 12 minutes from the first 911 call, which led till he was dead. I tracked down text message. I looked at DA reports, all kind of things. So as we're dealing with Ahmaud Arbery and I run for Ahmaud, and just that anger from that's not normal, seeing somebody just hunted down like that. And then Breonna's, as we're dealing with this, the news of Breonna Taylor starts coming in. You know what I'm saying? And then the injustice that took place in Louisville, Kentucky, and then imagine the emotional state, the emotional woes, the feeling of helplessness, the depression, like all of that, man. Ask anybody that's watching this. I challenge you to ask any of your Black friends what their mindset was when all of this played out, and then only to see George Floyd with the knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. 2 of those minutes, he was already dead. And this officer, like when I looked at everything. When I looked on his face, when I studied all of these videos of Ahmaud Arbery, and we could go back time and time again. I remember breaking the Trayvon Martin, that Trayvon Martin one when you and I met. You know what I'm saying? When we were stationed together. I remember breaking the tape down and like, how is this acquitted? You know what I'm saying? But for each of those, I looked at all of the people involved, and I just looked that George Floyd, the officer that took his life. Look at his face. You know what I'm saying? The evilness that is on his face, the pleas to get off his neck. He's not breathing. He's unconscious, and yet you still put your knee in this man's neck. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, he had to feel his life leave his body, because there's no more resistance. There's no more neck turning, trying to catch air or breath, because he's unconscious. So you, even with the knee, you have to feel that. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's what we're seeing. And we're not going to let the conversation get distracted by the looting or the building burning. Because what I understand, we know, we'll talk about the agitators and we'll talk about these paid demonstrators and all of that stuff. But even if the ones that are involved with the burning and stuff, what I value in this generation is, yes, we can say it's wrong. We can say that's arson. We can say that's a criminal act and people worked hard for that. But what I value in this generation's mentality is that they recognize that, yes, this is a building, but more important than this building is the value of this life. And that's why I don't want the conversation being distracted, or because Colin Kaepernick tried to tell us about this 2 years ago. You know what I'm saying? They try to have these peaceful protests. So oftentimes the all lives matter people, what they're honestly doing is they're trying to avoid having this conversation. Because if they're honest with themselves and they saw their son or their daughter at that point, they would be outraged too. They would burn so many things down. They would burn the whole system down. And that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah. And that was, for me, it just made me reflect on especially when all the protesting and stuff started. I just thought about the whole situation so much and stuff like that. Really started reflecting more on white privilege and like the benefits that I have in my life of being white. And I just started thinking about like you know, Jackson, Dell, so many of my friends that are black. And then not just that, but you know, I want to get married, I want to have kids.
Yeah.
I want my son or daughter to be able to be comfortable marrying whoever they want to marry, and I want
Yeah.
to embrace that family. And then like thinking
Yeah.
about like your kids and my friends that are going to have kids and stuff like that. Think like I don't want, when your son is the age you are now, I don't want him
Yeah.
to be needing to have this conversation still.
Exactly.
And it's like, so it's like selfishly, like those are the, you know, y'all are the people that I care about, so like I want to fix it for you. But then more importantly, like society will just be better, and
Yeah.
like everybody needs to be able to live their best life. So like that was why it just made me reflect on so much. And I don't claim nor feel like I have any answer on how to fix
Yeah.
everything, but
Yeah.
you and I have both agreed it starts with having the conversation and
Yeah.
being open to hearing all the things. Like uh we you and I were texting about a week ago about the Tony Dungy's quote about the whole
Yeah.
Drew Brees situation. And that was
Yeah.
like my, I guess like the one thing that's kind of always bothered me is I don't agree with what everybody says, especially
Uh-huh.
the white people that feel like they're needing to defend themselves.
Yeah.
But those things need to get said so we can talk about them. Because
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
those things don't get said, those people are just going to think those things and hold
Yeah.
on to those things.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
progress. Making people
Yeah.
hide their opinion isn't progress.
Exactly.
Getting
Exactly.
people to be willing to talk about their opinion, and having another side be willing to hear that opinion and then let a discussion commence,
Yeah.
is what that will breed progress.
Yeah.
I don't have
And
an answer for for
yeah.
how we can fix things, but I have an answer on how we can start working towards it. And it's if
Exactly.
everybody starts having a conversation. So that's why we're having this conversation, is to try to get people to see how easy it is, you know.
And that's building the bridge. That's all we want to do.
Yeah.
That's building the bridge. And that the concept that I think of, like when we go to the when we're going to the past, I want to have those, the bricks to build that bridge. And I wanted Judah coming from the future, where you see us having that steel and concrete and rebar, and us coming together in the middle. And maybe, I don't know, we'll talk about this, but maybe the next episode, I really want to disarm the offense taken when someone hears white privilege. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
if we think about it, it's not a bad thing if everybody was afforded that. I should look at you and give you the benefit of the doubt. I should look at you and say, you know what? These are your references. This is your background. This is your training. You're the most qualified for this job. I should look at you and not think that, oh, you're trying to get a hold of me, or, you know what I'm saying, take advantage of me. That's normal. We just want to extend that to everybody. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So yeah, man, I look forward to this.
Yeah, we can definitely save that for next episode, because I feel like that. I
Yeah.
was actually about to start getting into that, but that will be probably a long conversation.
Right.
Um, yeah, because and I think that was kind of more what I was gonna go with the second thing that you're talking about when you were driving through Alabama. Because, so I guess we'll touch on that a little bit without going into the whole white privilege part. But like for me
Yeah.
personally, like I know that's not something I've ever had to deal with. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously there's times I drive through a neighborhood that I'd be a little nervous about it or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yep.
But like that, and to me that's like the difference is there's times here or there that I feel like that. That can
Yeah.
be a daily occurrence for you just because you're a
Yeah.
black male.
Yep. Yeah. And the South is what it is. So I've met. Let me say this: I've met so many awesome people from the South. You know what I'm saying? Good old boys. I love them to death. We'll go fishing together. We'll do all kind of stuff together. So I'm not saying that everybody's racist, but there is that fear going through, like when someone is convinced that they dislike you because of the color of your skin, and then that bleeds over into those red and blue lights coming up in your rearview mirror, and the history we have of policing in America. Something could happen to me on a back road, and nobody would hear from me, or nobody could hear my side of the story. Crazy thing is, I wasn't even going to mention this. Um, I actually had a dream about 10 to 15 years ago. Few people know this, but I had a dream of my death. And mind you, this is before we start seeing everybody. We start seeing so much death on social media, and it's recorded. But what we see playing out in the news and in the media now, that's the exact dream I had of my death. All I remember is I was dead in the middle of the street. I don't know what city it is. A news helicopter is overhead, and the camera is on my body. And there's just video. I don't know how I died. There's just video. It's being recorded of I died pretty much on live, like while it was live. I died on air, and it was broadcast for the world. And we're seeing that like so often now. And that was my fear about driving through like backwoods Alabama, is that I put my children in a situation that I had no control over, and if something happened, and the thing is, I left my weapon at the house, which is, it's not common. But if something happened, I was unprepared, and nobody would know my story.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, and
Yeah,
it's crazy because it's not like a neighborhood or a circumstance that makes you feel that way. It's like a
yeah,
whole, like, just how society is right now.
yeah, yep. And like you said, we got to do something. My son is 8. He was the baby when we were there.
Yeah.
He's 8 now, and he said, and when an 8-year-old asks you, Daddy, why doesn't someone like me because the color of my skin? I don't know what answer to give them. Or when they ask you, well, are the police going to shoot me? It's like, I want to tell them, you know what I'm saying? You want to tell them no. You want to kind of get offended at that, but reality is, I watched a video today where 5 young black men were accosted and held at gunpoint. They were 14 to 16 years old. They were held at gunpoint for walking through a neighborhood. Like, what are you doing coming through that fence? And I'm just like, seriously, you have no idea who they are. You have no idea where they live. You have no idea, and you're gonna accost them, and that's traumatic. Like you said, that's traumatic. You know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
sticks with you, man. So that's
And,
the stuff nightmares are bred
and,
from.
and in this day and age, like you said, your son's 8 years old and asking those questions, like, with social media and just like cell phones and computers and everything nowadays, like, you can get so much more information at an early age. Because
Yeah,
that was one of the things that I was going to actually talk about. Was I don't think I understood that racism was a thing until maybe middle school.
yeah,
Probably like around the time when I was in middle school. Um, when I was little, like elementary school and stuff like that, living in Eastern Washington, predominantly white. But one of my dad's really good friends was a cop, and he was a black man, and he
yeah,
had kids and stuff like that. So we were interacting with them, and it was like, obviously, I can tell that their skin color is different than my skin color. But it
yeah,
was like, that was like the only thought. It was like, we look
yeah,
different. Like, it
yep,
wasn't like, why do you look different? Or I don't know if I like you because you look different. It was just like,
yeah, right,
yeah. And if,
yeah,
and then like, I think as I started getting more aware of it, like, it like attracted me more. Like, I was like more interested. Like, I wanted to
yeah,
understand, like, okay, like, is your lifestyle different than mine? Like, and so that, I think that was with racism, even, up until now, with racism and everything that's gone on. I think there's a lot of people, and it definitely affected me this way, where I still had somewhat an ignorant perspective on it, because
yeah,
I've never held that against somebody,
yeah,
the color of
yeah,
their skin. So
yeah,
like, and it's like, make jokes about it, with my friends. We might
Yeah,
joke
yeah,
around and say
yeah,
stuff, because it's like you
yeah,
hear all this stuff. And
yep,
I remember, I can't remember what, it wasn't about race. I can't remember what I was joking about. I think I was just like joking about like how men treat women or something like that at work
yeah,
one day. And uh, my female coworker said something to me about it. And I was
yeah,
like, the reason why I make these jokes, like, I don't find it funny that somebody is treated that way. I
yeah,
find it comical in a bad way that people can have that ignorant perspective.
yeah, yeah, right,
Like, that's why
yeah,
I say those things in a joking manner, because I
yeah,
find it
yeah.
absolutely absurd that people can use these things in a
Live like to do
serious
this, yeah,
manner.
right, yeah, yeah,
Um, so I think really, like, that's like why I feel so much differently about how things are now, and wanting to do whatever I can to promote a conversation to help anybody that it can, is like I'm understanding more and more. I feel like I'm being less ignorant to the fact of like how much it really affects people.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
still
and I'll
and I
say,
still will never understand, like, I'm never gonna have to deal with the stress of being a black man, and
yeah,
feeling uncomfortable in so many situations and stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
those are things I will never be able to understand, but I can be as empathetic as possible to it, and try
yeah,
to do everything I can to help.
and that's the key. I'll say this. I know we're wrapping it up now. I'll say this and wrap. The difference for us now is usually when we go through this, it's like it feels like we're by ourselves because everybody else wants to wait, and I'll wait to see what the police report. And for whatever reason, they believe the police report every single time. The police get the benefit of the doubt. 100%. Oh, he feared for his life. Oh, the cell phone looked like a. Oh, the Snickers bar looked like a. Or the Skittles looked like a. All this stuff. Give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'll wait to hear the story that comes out, and they're just. It seems like they're just hoping for something to come out that can justify their silence or justify their backwards mentality. But the cool thing here, there's not cool at all. But the thing that we take away from this is we appreciate people like you. We appreciate advocates, and there always have been advocates. There always have been people that white people that were on the front line, that were willing to get beat, that were willing to all of this, but it wasn't enough because we're still here. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? But right now it seems like it's not the conversation switched from black versus white to everybody versus races, to where you can't just be, well, I'm not a racist. Now you have to be anti-racist. You can't, like I said, I took Martin Luther King's saying, and he said silence is betrayal. I said, to me, I said it's something like silence is deadly, or silence is fatal. You know what I'm saying? And I heard someone else say silence is abuse. To where we can't afford to be silent. You know what I'm saying? You can't no longer. I'll wait for the evidence to come out. You really question everything, and you look into everything, and you research everything, and you understand that just because they have a, like you and I understand, like when they say, oh, you know what I'm saying? Oh, he's military. I love my veteran. Yo, you and I worked with some trash people before. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, oh, he's military. I know he can be trash. You know what I'm saying? So we don't, like, I get it. The benefit of the doubt is great, but we really have to look into it, and that's how you weed out the bad apples. You know what I'm saying? When it's a system that protects those bad apples, it's not just bad apples anymore. So that is what feels different to me, is that, okay, cool, we're not on our own. You know what I'm saying? Okay, cool, we have an advocate. Okay, cool, while this fire is hot, man, let's keep pouring gasoline into it. Let's have these conversations. Let's talk and let them know. Like I have seen black people also that are on the other end of the spectrum, that are just fed up and mad, and they're saying, I'm mad at all white people. I understand that, but to me, it's not conducive. You know what I'm saying? To me, it's not. I don't have an issue with all white people. The only issue I had, if I did have an issue, is like, yo, where are you at? You're my
Yeah.
friend. You know me. You were there with me. Why are you not hurting with me? This could have been me. You know what I'm saying? So that's the difference I've seen in man. It's witnessed. It's felt. You know what I'm saying? I really feel it's genuine. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel like there's some where we can tell it's fake, like where you get caught being racist and then you get outed like immediately. Oh, I apologize. I didn't. Nah, bruh. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so the majority of it, the ones that are like on the front lines, the ones that are speaking out, man, it feels genuine and it feels like the guard is down and it's like, okay, let me look into this and let me listen to what they're saying.
Yeah. And one quick other thing of why another reason why I wanted to do this was I feel like a lot of what we're seeing obviously is the celebrities and stuff like that speaking out on it, which is important and huge, but I want people to understand like it needs to change at every level.
Yeah, right.
So it's like our friends need to be having these conversations.
Exactly.
Our coworkers, the people we run into on a daily basis, need to be open to having these conversations to understand each other and to try to help each other on both sides of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll get into it, but the system fed into a lot of that ignorance. And we don't learn true history. We don't learn true Black history. We don't learn true American history. The victor always gets to write the history books. You know what I'm saying? The victor always gets to tell how it was. So if you're ignorant, whether it's Black or white, a lot of Black people are ignorant to what the atrocities that really happened, or how things really played out, or how systems got in place. And like I said, the only way to tear this down is to have that conversation. And if the thing is, if we're not talking and they're not in the history books, then as time keeps passing, the first-hand accounts, the ones that hold that history, they're just gonna die off, and it's gonna be lost forever. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I appreciate it, man. This was a good conversation, I think.
Yeah, for sure. We covered the. I narrowed. I think I had like 8 or 9 things that I was like, we can touch on all these, and then I narrowed it down to 4, and we got through one, maybe half of one. So definitely going to be multiple episodes. And just quick out there for anybody that's listening or watching, for sure leave comments. I mean, any sort of criticism, I'm cool with hearing, really. Even if you want to spout some hate, I guess, do you. But anything that you guys want to hear us talk about, anything that maybe something we touched on that you guys have thoughts on, leave a comment or anything like that. And if I know you personally, I can try to reach out to get more information and whatnot. We appreciate anybody that's willing to listen, watch. And really just the important thing to take away from this is, like, obviously you're hearing our thoughts, the things that we've experienced, but the important thing is you as the listener, your experiences in your life and how you can help everybody else going forward. So you need to get out there and have conversations with your friends, your family, your coworkers, and try to do everything you can to spread love to everyone, really.
Man, I love it. I appreciate y'all. Let's keep the conversation going. Like you said, if y'all have any questions, the most outlandish, I try to consider myself. You try to challenge me. You know what I'm saying? If you have a question that you're like, oh, he's not going to be able to answer this, or he's not going to want to answer this, I think, like, because it's me and you, I honestly think we can touch on so many subjects that are hard to talk about. If you have a question, shoot them my way. You know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, we are seriously open to having a conversation about anything. At worst, we bash your question really hard because it's so outlandish. Yeah. But we will talk about the question, no matter what. Exactly. We will talk on any question.
Definitely.
All right, thank you everybody for watching.
Yeah, have a good one now.